listening to the How to Health podcast. Turn up that stereo, plug in those earbuds, or pull up a chair. It's time to master your health journey. Here are your hosts, Dr. Heidi Cook and athletic trainer Tyler Smith. Let's ride.
Howdy ho.
How are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Now that we worked through some technical Albuquerque difficulties, we're on and we're recording.
The old Kirky.
So I'm just hoping everything stays stable for the next, 60 minutes. That's my hope. We keep our fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, toes crossed. Cross it all for us, folks. It is just, life on the road.
It is.
How is life on the road?
Travel is pretty smooth. We're here for championships, so we're here a little bit longer than average. We got here Wednesday. We'll go home Saturday night, but not bad. It's the calm before the storm. We're at indoor conference championships, so
Fun.
See how things go. But so far, there's not a lot of panic, which kind of makes me panic because I'm used to everyone panicking. And other than my frequent flyers that needed something last night, we're in a good spot. So
it's early.
It's early. Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
I'm just waiting for next week's check-in when you're like, I was feeling really good, and then
the meet started. We don't have a lot today. We have a multi going today and then some longer distance run stuff. So tomorrow will be the bulk of like prelims. Most people will be going like a longer day than a normal day for us. So
yeah. Well, fun.
It is. We'll see. I'm hoping it's fun.
I'm just going to put that energy out there for you.
Put it out there. We're assume we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun, low stress. That's how all athletic events go, right?
Yes, no stress at all.
Super fun, low stress. I think that's how I'd describe every athletic event I ever worked.
Yeah, or none. One of the two. Whatever you want to go with.
Oh, Lord. Well, that's good. I'm glad. How did your week go outside of that?
I'm good. I was laughing last night. We were on a call with some clients, and then you had made reference to Tyler's running more now as part of his goals. And the funny part is I'm trying to work through it right now. My goal, I said I want to run X amount of miles over the course of the year.
Mm-hmm.
My right knee is putting up some pretty fierce resistance to that goal. It does not want me to run that many miles. So we're working through that. And hopefully I've had to take every other day just because it's been a little achy. And it's always, it's that one, it's always one of them. The left knee is fine. The right knee just does not like me, but I've always had problems with just that knee,
Mm-hmm.
So it's putting up some resistance in my running. But luckily I have let's see, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 or 4 days to rest it and do the things I'm supposed to do to make sure it'll be okay, because there's not a lot of running that goes on in Albuquerque because there's not a lot of safe places to go run. So Tyler just bags it.
Where your guys' hotel is not the best.
So I just do some hotel room workouts just to keep my body moving, but hopefully the rest will do it well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love that. I have something to send you.
Uh-oh.
Remember how I said, I was like, it's only a matter of time before my father-in-law comes in and sends all of a whole bunch of shadow boxing and or boxing workouts. He sent a nice paragraph.
Nice.
Along with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 YouTube links for you.
There you go. I've actually been enjoying that. I've been doing it I only do it like toward the end of my workout for like 10 to 15 minutes, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying learning that skill. So new stuff is always appreciated.
Well, now that we're here, and before I forget, I'm just going to forward this to you.
To make sure I have my boxing on point.
Yes, and I'm sure he will be awaiting, as well as I will be awaiting, a full recap summary next week on how his boxing has infiltrated your life.
There you go. I will at least get to, well, I might get to one of them, possibly two by next week. The problem is I don't have anything here. And so
that's no excuse. That's no excuse for this man, because shadow boxing you can do anywhere.
I'm sure you could, yes.
What he said this somewhere. Hold on, this was funny. Gosh, I know he said something funny about it in here. These are now your travel workouts.
These are. So the funny part is I really I don't know. I've never done, so I can't critique it. Like shadow boxing, I just really like hitting the bag. Like that's the fun part, is actually making contact with something. So
right. Well, he has some words about that for you in here, which we don't have to get into on the pod. But big proponent of shadow boxing, and some resources for you there. But anyways, I will be expecting an update next week.
Okay, got it. I mean, I need an extra workout. Maybe I'll listen to it and I will try one out while I'm here.
There you go.
Something will take off.
That's right. That's right.
How are you doing this week? How's your week been?
Week's been good. I feel like it's crazy. Like it feels crazy that it's only Thursday, but like also crazy that it's already Thursday simultaneously, if that makes sense. I was out of town this weekend. I flew home for my mom and sister threw me a baby shower, which was super fun. Got to be with family and some close friends from back home. And so it was just really great to see everybody and spend time. And so I came back feeling very loved, and I'm just very grateful for all of the awesome ladies in my life. Yeah, that was super great, and just always good to go home and spend some quality time at home. It was crazy to be like flying back, and my parents dropped me off at the airport, and it was, well, this is the last time you'll be here, just you. And I was just like, oh. Reality really set in there. But yeah, anyways, that was fun. And yeah, outside of that, it's just been, I flew back Monday, so I've had kind of a shortened work week. So just trying to get everything in order. And wow, oh, big yawn. Get everything in order and get caught up on everything. And then I'm in town this weekend, which I'm thankful for. My husband and I started looking at the calendar, and it was just like, there are like lots of things that we still need to check off the list, and we're running out of weekends. Because like I'm pretty much like gone up until when my like flight cutoff is, like when I'm not allowed to fly anymore. And that's all well and good. And so in my head, I've just really been like slating all of April and, the beginning of May to like getting the last things done that we need done. And it's just not looking that way, because it sounds like we have visitors coming to see us. And while I'm excited for that, I'm like, when am I supposed to do everything?
Maybe come at a different time, because I can't fit that in my schedule.
It's really setting in because on one of my apps, it gives a little countdown, and we're in double digits, and that about sent me.
That's close.
Yeah.
That's also assuming that nothing comes early or there's no surprises.
Okay. Let's just not put that out into the universe. Would appreciate that.
I mean, I'm just saying like a couple days, maybe a week. You never know. Pop in a little early.
He could. And who knows? Maybe at that point I will be thankful for an early arrival. But right now it sounds terrifying.
But more than likely, if he is your son, he might be just a couple days late. So,
yep, just a couple days late.
A couple days.
Right on theme for me. Not super late.
Not super late.
But
fashionably late to the party.
Yes. Definitely. But if he's, my husband's child, he will be a month early.
Oh, there you go. We don't know where we're going to be.
And so if we just, if he gets 50-50, then, maybe he'll just be right on time.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we'll hope for. Right on time.
Yes. Anyways, this week he is the size of a VHS tape.
Ooh, that's going back.
They used The Little Mermaid.
With the appropriate cover or the inappropriate cover?
It's too small to tell.
That's what she said.
That's right. And then, so this one confused me. So gardeners out there can tap in and let me know what I'm missing about this. But he's the size of a turnip this week. That feels like we've gone backwards.
Yeah. I'm going to plead my ignorance, and I don't actually know how big an average turnip is. I don't know.
I mean, we've been talking bunch of grapes, ear of corn, squash.
Maybe they're including like the top of it, not just the turnip itself. I don't know.
I mean, it looks like a freaking radish.
Yeah, it does. But maybe it's bigger than a radish. I don't know. I'm not a turnip guy.
Anyways, we crossed the bridge of 2 pounds.
Oh, there we go.
And we're almost 14 inches long.
There we go.
So, anyways, I'm supposed to be eating omega-3 rich foods and get some selenium this week.
So
Brazil nuts, chicken, and beans.
I was going to say, usually I think omega-3s in fish, but I don't think you're supposed to eat fish when you're pregnant. Are you?
There's certain ones you can eat, yeah. And then it's like watching the just amount like per week.
So you gotta maintain your low sushi per week.
Yes. No sushi. But yes, tonight is our salmon night. So
nice.
Go omega-3s. Anyways, yeah. So that's what's going on in our neck of the woods. Just cruising along, and he's just kicking away in there, being a little roly-poly-oly. So it's interesting. Like, it's early enough. So like at 28 weeks is when they typically will say like you can have a lot of consistency in his movements and things like that. They start to talk about like what's called a kick count, which is essentially like, if you've been really busy all day or you don't feel like you've felt him all day or, whatever, like go lay down and, you count how many, kicks in a time period. And anyways, so I have days where he's like, I swear to God, doing like swimming laps in there and just flipping around and doing all of the things and kicking really hard. And then like I'll have a day where I feel him and I think he's just in a different position and the kicks feel a lot smaller. And so I'm like, is everything okay?
Little panic sets in.
Yes. And then you have nights like last night where I was on the heels of a day where like I felt him, but not like a ton. And then he kicked the shit out of me while going to sleep last night. And I was like, well, thank you
Thanks,
for
buddy.
putting my mind at ease, but I would also like to put my whole body at ease and go to sleep.
Shut down the system for a little bit.
Yes.
You were impeding that with your kicking.
Yeah. Anyways, but he's growing, he's cooking, and he's getting older.
He is getting older. Which,
Wow.
look at that transition. Speaking of those of us getting older,
Huh. Oh yeah, and Tyler had his birthday on Sunday. Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. How do we feel? Not too
Not too much different. I mean, 42 to 43 is not, other than my team giving me a card that just basically said, the card just said you're old. That's it. And then they all signed it. And I was like, thanks, guys. That's great.
Thank you.
Did a lot of nice things in the card, but the card just said you're old.
Appreciate it, team.
Appreciate it. Yay, team.
Go team. That's good. I saw you had a good little celebration with your fam and
We had a
awesome.
good time.
Good. Yay. Love that. So now that you are old and getting older, what things are, top of brain for you?
Well, it's funny that we're going to talk about, we usually throw a myriad of ideas at Heidi about what we could talk about. And one of the ones that we kind of talked about and landed on today was the idea of getting older, because now I'm older. So I guess that was top of mind. But it was also what areas.
Podcast episode for Tyler. That's it.
This is basically for me, so I can reiterate it every year at this time to remind myself when I get old. But what things, it was kind of like a back and forth conversation as far as like, as we get older, what have we seen from people clients we've had, experiences that we've had, or like what are, I think two things. What are probably two or three things. What are the areas of focus that we see currently that people are probably neglecting that would pay big dividends when we get older? And just also what are trends that are like, because I see some significant ones, we'll jump into them in a minute, as far as like the generation right now, when I look at when I had grandparents or even like my parents that are getting older, like it's funny to look at what the priority of what they were told as they were going through life as health advice, and how maybe like if we could go back in time, or if you're listening to this, like this is where we see, not that it was wrong, like at the time health information always changes,
Yeah.
But in that facet it also evolves. And so there are some things I think, we kind of missed the mark. One of the funniest ones for me was like growing up, and this isn't the same, it was a little bit the same, was like everything was low fat when I was growing up, because at the time I thought, like, well, if you eat fat, it transitions to fat. And so if we just go low fat, you can
Not have fat.
That turned out to be completely false. But for a big narrative of like, I don't know, 6 to 10 years, that's where everything went. So in this, we're just kind of reflecting as far as what we've seen or what we've experienced. And like, this is where we would put our money as healthcare professionals, but also where we see the most benefit.
Yeah. And like, to be totally honest, this is a huge reason, like maybe not like aging specific, but in a way, yes. I really transitioned out of the clinic because I had this just like slap in the face of what our traditional healthcare system, misinformation, lack of quality information, and, lack of resources for individuals to take ownership of their health looked like, and landed them in front of me. You know what I mean? Like that, I had that just like shoved down my throat for months, when I was in this particular clinical rotation. And, while we need people to care for that population now, I felt that huge push out of that space to see, what impact can I make on the front end so that those people aren't, maybe the number, the frequency or whatever isn't as high in terms of what I was seeing in that population at the time. I just sat there and kept thinking, like, what if somebody captured you, 40 years ago and gave you the tools that you needed to care for your health? Because some of it was, misinformation and just lack of knowledge, and not a lack of knowledge that I'm saying like is, their fault. It was just not available. Right. Especially for a lot of the individuals I was seeing, like the internet was born in the later stages of their life. And so like that just information at your fingertips kind of wasn't really the world that they lived in, right? And then on the flip side of that, now we have the overload of information at our fingertips causing almost paralysis by analysis in today's kind of aging. And I say aging very loosely, right? Like we've talked about this on the podcast before, and not to like scare anybody, but like the aging process, like we peak, and I don't want to say like you've peaked and it's all downhill from here, because it's really not, especially if we insert a lot of these appropriate interventions in, right? There can be a lot of growth that happens after age 30, but biologically it becomes harder, right, to do a lot of those things after the age of 30, because that's when we kind of turn that corner in the aging process overall. And so, again, like this is why I pivoted out, was so that I could capture the 30, 40, 50-year-olds and help them develop the tools that they need so that they can care for themselves and take ownership and responsibility and appropriate action to, not have to land in front of me 40 years from now.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to use the term dispel myths, but I think a lot of things that we're going to talk about today fly in the notion that certain things when you get older, you just have to accept. You know what I mean? Like, we'll just wait till you're older. We're like, yeah, there's some truth to that. But we always talk about, like you said, the peak and then this decline. And it's kind of like the difference I think the things we're going to talk about are the difference between going up this hill on a bicycle and then just hitting the top and just hands off, Jesus, take the wheel. We'll go as fast as like this bike is going to go on the hill, versus like, hey, let's pump some brakes on some of this. Let's slow ourselves down. Or maybe like in some ways finding like a less steep hill. Like, I feel like even though things will trend in that direction, I think a lot of these things that we point out are going to give you more independent, more freedom. And some of those things that just personally, when I observe family members, friends, and all that are doing this, that, like you said, I wish I could have got to them sooner and they would have just listened. So you could be like, actually, if we do this and this, you're going to be a lot better off. You're not going to need all those resources and things that I think people just accept because some of this information has not been given to them before this podcast.
Yeah. I think like, I think about that concept. We talk about the idea of neutral thinking a lot in the kind of body positive space, and like accepting and loving your body and taking action, to support it, regardless of, maybe how we're feeling about it, right? Like, and I think that concept very much translates into this bucket of aging. And, because I hear a lot of frustration and there is a lot of maybe sadness or grieving that's happening of like a past version of yourself when things were easier, right? When you didn't have to spend time, energy, and attention on mobility, right? And we were just able to move and and play, the recreational sports we want to play and do this and that. And, all of these different things with a lot less mental effort to care for the body that we have. And I hear that and I understand that. And we have ways that we can, cope with those feelings that we're having, right? And like kind of the dichotomy between where we are and maybe where we once were. But in that, right, that concept of neutral thinking really helps us accept reality in what it is. And, we can kind of be like, well, it's harder now. It's like, yeah, okay, it's harder now. What are we going to do about it? Right? Because we can do nothing and it's going to continue to get harder, or we can do something and we can create ease for ourselves. And like that is the frustration that I feel in this space.
Well, even what you're saying though is I think sometimes in the neutral thinking sense, it's like it's not like taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves and our body, like also sometimes means having to make the tougher decision. You know what I mean? Like you can't in those things when you're, taking care of yourself is not always the easiest thing, but that's also like if you think of having children, it's a sign of love. You can't always make the easy decision.
Right.
Sometimes you're not taking care of it. If I just fed Quentin candy all the time, it's easy and he loves it, but ultimately I'm not taking care of him if I do
right.
it. And so sometimes those decisions can be a little bit easier and a little bit more difficult, but ultimately, like you said, like it leads to less frustration down the road.
Totally. Yeah. I hear you 100%.
So if you were to pick like just one right out the gate where you were like aging and health, what is like one bucket that you want people to look at or start, pouring their efforts into?
Yeah. I think getting a grasp on where you are now, right? Like that's a big one of like getting into that very honest conversation of where am I now and where can I, meet myself where I am,
Uh-huh.
and then taking that next step from there.
Yeah, because you have to be honest about, like you said, where you're at and like where you want to be. And sometimes that can be something as simple as like, what do I want to do that I can't do? Like, what are those things that are limiting me in my enjoyment in life? And what do I need to do to get to those places? Or what are steps I can take to make that a reality instead of this foregone conclusion? We talked a lot about last night is even the idea or the concept, if you're thinking or mulling this over and you've had some drive to change, is a great step in the right direction as we get older, because it's not just accepting like I can't do these things. It is I can't do these things, but I want to do these things. So how can I create a plan for myself so these things aren't a big mountain we're climbing? I'm taking steps every day to get to where I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, because everybody's in a different place and everybody has a different history that's brought them here, like everybody's entering the kind of aging process in a different place and they have a different history. And so there's different things that we're dealing with that, have either set us up to kind of roll into this space very, with a lot of ease, or maybe we haven't had that experience. And this is the first time that we're kind of having that moment of, things are getting harder, or, maybe blood results, or, whatever it might be, that ultimately just like is like the light bulb moment or wake up call. And this might be the first time that we are taking steps to improve our health.
Yeah. And if I saw one general trend in this, when things are getting harder, my first thought when I went through this is a lot of times these things are harder because we haven't practiced or we don't have the strength to do the things that we want to do. And I think that is turning a corner like in mainstream, but I feel like throughout history, when you would go to your doctor and things weren't well, they'd be like, hey, you just need to hit some cardio. You know what I mean? You need to exercise, to walk or run. And there wasn't a lot of emphasis placed on like strength training, appropriate strength training to whoever you were or wherever you are at right now, but maintaining a level of muscle mass throughout the course of your life, and that how important that can be to do the things you want to do to make things a little bit easier. And we've just now done a lot of research. I mean, there is some cardiovascular benefits. There is, glucose benefits because muscle helps absorb and do some of those things. And they're just showing that it keeps helping. But I think that was lost. So for me, as things get harder, a lot of people don't want to hear the answer is to like, let's put together a strength program, because it seems like, well, that's hard too. I don't want to do, movement doesn't feel great right now.
Right.
You're adding more and you're adding resistance. I don't like that at all. But I think as you get older, those only pay larger dividends and make all those things, like you said, harder stuff becomes a little bit easier. We just have to find a way to move it into our lives as we age.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so I guess transitioning, right? Like we've had this starting point and we kind of know where we're going, but, talking to somebody who is maybe frustrated with how their, body is feeling, or just like had one of those moments where it gets kind of put at the forefront of our brain, like, oh, like I do need to take care of this. What is your kind of first step there with that individual?
I mean, for a couple things is like, one, you said, assess I think the great part is assessing where you're at, what you want to do. Like, I want to be able to play with my grandkids, but right now, like getting up and down, like is a chore for me for whatever reason you have, you know what I mean? And so doing an analysis of what you would like to do. And then, part of it is just trying to move yourself in any facet, like through body weight stuff or anything to practice those movements, to get better at those movements, whatever they might be, or those things that you want. But it's so individualized that I really hate to say it. I feel like this is where hiring someone or having like some guidance makes a massive difference, because everything is appropriate to you where you're at right now. And it's really hard to blanket, just say, do this, depending on how you feel, how your movement and how your body is. But looking into like, even it doesn't have to be super expensive, but some sort of resource that you can bounce ideas off people, or that you can start to program or put together something that is tailored to your individual needs until you have a more free form, things feel good, and you can transition to like either independent or just things that everyone else is doing if you're limited in that facet.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that's a great place to start, where do you feel like, we talked about like the different buckets, right? Like, we only have so many coins to like drop in these buckets, right? Where would you say those most important buckets are? Like, I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like, not everybody's going to use every bucket, but like what buckets do you want to bring to the forefront or bring to people's attention of, where they could put those deposits?
I think the things that I put a lot of effort in would be obviously like strength and mobility as we get older, like those two things. And it doesn't have to come at a very large, what do you want to say? Like it has to be tailored to where you are now, not where you've been. And it doesn't have to be as daunting as I think a lot of people think it is. There's a lot of, especially as we get older, a lot of, lack of a better term, bang for your buck in just like gross movements like squats and like big exercise activities that don't have to be loaded a lot, but also create mobility at the same time. Like, can you get into, a 90-degree squat? Can you get up from the couch without, like the whole shifting, moving thing, that everyone does.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've noticed lately, and I don't know why it's at my forefront, is also taking like a dive into your, like, as you get older, what you're eating and what you're intaking in your body. You know what I mean? Like we have a funny joke as far as like, when my grandma, before she passed away, she would get up, have coffee, have like maybe a donut, and then drink coffee all the way till dinner. Like there was no other substance in there. So there's a lot of benefit, particularly in getting protein as you get older, but paying attention to foods that make you feel better and foods that like are well-rounded, that help support your body, because it's like it's aging. So those nutrients and those things become vastly more important as you get older, because you could kind of get away with it when you're younger. You know what I mean? And then as you get older, I feel like you kind of have to put a little bit more emphasis on that, or you just have to pay a little bit more attention to, what did my meals look like today? Like, did I have a good balance between what I like, but what is good for me and helps me feel better, like throughout the day? Like, is my digestion doing well? Am I like feeling overly inflamed because I ate too many of XYZ and it's bringing up my inflammation levels? Like looking at that, because I feel like it just gets lost sometimes as we get older. You kind of get this like, I don't really care. I'm going to do what I want to do, which in some facets, I mean, all the more to you. But at the same time, I feel like there's a tax on that sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you can do that, but that doesn't mean necessarily that if I just have bacon and whiskey every morning for breakfast for my whole life, at some point that's not going to catch up to me or be something that could have some detrimental effects because I put that in place.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that's a big one too. Of it kind of goes hand in hand with that, like things were easier and now they're harder kind of like, thought process. And I think it goes to this period of transition, right? Where we're transitioning, where maybe things were a little bit more second nature and all of a sudden they're taking a lot more mental energy or effort or whatever it might be. And in that period of transition, we get frustrated with the amount of like mental energy it's taking. But I think giving yourself the time to put those little deposits in those different buckets, will pay dividends in the long run. But yeah, like bringing attention to what my inputs are and not having I used to, eat X, Y, and Z and it was fine. Or I used to do X, Y, and Z, or we can take an audit of where we are now. And again, it goes back to that kind of neutral thinking thing of like, where are we now in terms of like being rooted in reality? And then where can we go from there, knowing what we know now and how can we adjust? And I think that can just feel hard and challenging when it feels like we're having to adjust a lot simultaneously.
Well, and the interesting concept I heard from Lindsay, which I can't remember where she got it, I can't remember who was doing it, was in the mindset of, as we get older, I can't remember who it was. This is going to kill me. She's going to tell me the minute she hears this. Was an actor or someone who is an older gentleman, and they asked him like how he stayed so youthful, or how he frames his mindset, because that can be just as important as anything else. And he said, I wake up every morning and I said, don't let the old man in. And then he just goes about his day, as far as like, I have limitations, I have things I can do, but damn it, I'm going to do whatever I can do to the best of my ability as I get older. And like that understanding of what you're saying is being realistic, but also letting your mindset kind of dictate how you're going to behave every day and how you're going to try things, I think pays a lot of dividends. Because if you don't think you can do something, you're probably not going to do it. If you think things are challenging, whether they are or they aren't, how you go into them and how you frame any task you do is going to be vastly more positive if you take that mindset, or you understand that I have limitations, but I also have things I can do, and I can't let those two thoughts conflict all the time, because then I just end up in that stagnant place where I don't do anything at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's that concept of like, these two things can coexist, and yet my actions can be, you know, in a direction in opposition of maybe some of these negative thoughts or, you know, different things. Like, we don't have to ignore that that's how we're feeling. We don't have to like try and shove it down or, yeah, like essentially ignore it completely. But we do need to be able to move forward despite that.
Yeah. And I think we talk a lot about that with just people and I'm not even talking like older population, you know, like 60s, 70s. We talk a lot about that with people who are 30, 40s, and 50s, as far as like, you know, your mind frame should be there. And like you said, we should think about our limitations, but that doesn't mean we still don't have to act. We can't be paralyzed by thoughts we're having or some like realizations we have, because in reality, things are going to keep moving forward, and we have to, you know, prioritize and have a plan moving forward. No matter how much the hill in front of us looks like, it's very important to be like, okay, but I can still move forward by doing X, Y, and Z. And that's a very timely thing that we've even talked about someone last night, is like, there's a big mountain ahead of us, but even just the thought of how am I going to do this, at least create some mind space for us to understand that it's a reality and that we can, even with limitations, move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like where I would want to see like where your efforts go, right, as we make this transition, and like what can ease the transition. And, you know, if you're feeling stuck in like, this is how I'm feeling and that's frustrating, and I, you know, want to make an impact, like the three main buckets that come to my mind are what Tyler said in terms of just like auditing your intake, right? And getting a little bit more clear in like, what are my body's needs now? And that might be different than, you know, what your body's needs were 5 years ago, right? In terms of your activity level, in terms of, you know, what's digesting well. Holy cow, it is snowing so hard. It was 60 degrees and sunny yesterday. Anyways, wow, I caught that out of the corner of my eye. You know, like what's digesting well, what's feeling well, how do you feel after you eat something, you know, all of those things. And then on top of that, resistance training, resistance training, resistance training, resistance training, resistance training, and then mobility work. Like, I think a lot of people maybe like don't see or don't feel the value in it, especially if you're coming from a period of time in your life where you were able to just, you know, go run 6 miles and come home and feel great, or you were able to, you know, go do all of these things and you didn't have to put in that extra time or effort to like really pour into and care for your body. And now you do, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that mobility work. And again, like in this phase of life for me, right? Like I'm really seeing the benefit of mobility work in my life to just like create space in my body. And that is a common thread, no matter if you're, you know, aging, pregnant, whatever it might be, right? When we're experiencing changes within our body, taking the time to make sure that like it is moving appropriately so that we can load it appropriately, right, is where a lot of our time and attention need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know if it's one of those things where it's almost like you don't understand it until you're there, or you miss it. You like take it for granted all the time, and then all of a sudden something has been taken off your plate. You have that moment where you either just accept it or you find a plan to move forward and fix it. And I think, like you said, the mentality thing, but also understanding that mobility, strength training. I would probably add like on there, make sure you're getting your protein to support yourself. But like those things, as we get older, are ways to combat a lot of those things that I think have become a normal place for us in society. Is like, I know it sounds bad, not making things easier, but like if I can't do this, there's always a market to help you adjust your life instead of being like, no, I can still do this. I just need to find a way to reach those goals through my own self efforts.
Totally. Well, do you want to go to the sauna and wrap this up?
Sure.
What's up, everyone? Welcome. Let's head to sauna and let's dive in. Let's go.
All right. Big takeaways you want from today's episode.
I think that, while like we talked about at the beginning, while aging is part of the process, I don't think there are definitely things we can do to support ourselves and make our quality of life much better as we get older. And I think that's ultimately when we talked about these things, that's what we're aiming for, is not just, am I stronger as I get older? It's just all around quality of life. Like we want to try to help everyone get that, and doing things like strength training, resistance training, appropriate to where you're at, keeping yourself mobile so you can move around and do what you want to do. And then also paying a little bit more attention as far as like your protein intake and what you're eating helps make a large difference as far as like how you feel every day and how you want to get up. And it affects your mentality. It affects all those different things. So just starting to pay a little bit more attention. Obviously we have some programs that can help people with that, but like also mapping out a plan for yourself. Like you said, where am I at now? What do I want to maintain? Like in the old analogy or joke where I tell everyone I still want to be able to shovel my driveway when I'm 80 years old. Like,
right.
Find an abstract thought or an abstract, like, I enjoy this and I want to do this as long as I possibly can. And then set up, doesn't have to be massive plans, but just how you think you're going to maintain that. And then find someone, run it through, and then just create a plan for yourself.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's fantastic. I think for me, like the big takeaway that I want people to have is, there's space to like feel how you feel about, a past life, a past body, a past, whatever. Right. But not allowing that to dictate how you show up. Right. Like not allowing, well, I used to be able to do this and now I can't. And like that being the narrative, and instead being like, okay, this is the reality. What can I do in order to do the things that I love to do or want to be able to do, 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah. And I think the other part I would add to that, where I totally understand, is like, also maybe understand that we can do things, but in a different capacity that we were before. Like I used to be able to run a really fast mile. You know what I mean? I used to be able to run a 5:30 mile. Well, now that I'm 65, that may not be realistic, but having a goal of a mile time is okay. We just also have to give ourselves some grace and be like, well, there are things that we're not going to be able to do to the fullest extent, but we can still do things we love.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I have trivia for you.
Trivia. What's our topic today?
Trivia. It is general, fascinating trivia, facts, health facts.
Is that the name of the webpage? General, fascinating.
No, but that is how I'm summarizing it.
I like it. That would be a good webpage.
Let's see. That would be a good webpage. I would have visited it, I'm sure. True or false? A person will die from lack of sleep sooner than they will die from lack of starvation.
True.
True.
I was gonna say I can't remember, I heard that somewhere. I don't know why that.
I feel like you had a similar question on a trivia on a trivia earlier. Let's see. Okay. Humans are the only animals to produce what?
Is it like a produce, like anatomy wise, or produce like as in produce?
Produce what liquid?
Oh, gross. I mean, really, you really had to throw that out there.
It's not inappropriate.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Tears? I don't know.
Yes, emotional tears.
Emotional tears.
Yes.
No other animals have tears? Or is it just like
I'm sure they have tears, but not like emotional, sad, happy tears.
how do we know? How do we know what the animals are feeling? We don't.
You take it up with these people. What % of your total body mass is made up of your blood?
3%?
Higher.
15%.
10%.
10%. 10% is blood.
What in kilograms?
Okay.
How much skin do we shed in our lifetime?
I feel like we've had this, but I thought it was in pounds.
Yeah, this is in kilograms.
Kilograms. In our lifetime?
Mm-hmm.
5.
22 kilograms.
22 kilograms. I was off.
Crazy is that? So in 30 minutes, your body will produce enough heat to boil how much water?
Ooh. A gallon.
Half a gallon.
Half a gallon. Oof.
Average body temperature is 98.6. Humans can expend roughly 350,000 joules of energy per hour, the same amount of energy that a 100-watt light bulb gives off.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting. So humans have 46 chromosomes,
Yep.
or 23 pairs. How many do peas have?
I mean, do peas like that we eat?
Yeah.
That's so random. 16.
14. That was pretty close. How many do crayfish have?
Crayfish?
Yes.
12.
200.
200. Yeah, not even close. As soon as I came out, I was like, no, it's got to have more than a P. So
Isn't that wild, though? How many miles approximately how many miles of blood vessels do we have?
Miles?
Like if you were to line them all up.
10.
60,000
Miles?
miles.
Oh, wow. That was way off.
And last but not least, humans on average produce enough saliva. I feel like we've had this one. Maybe not. Sorry if this is a repeat question. Humans produce enough saliva in their lifetime to fill what vessel?
Vessel? Like a swimming pool vessel?
Sure.
Maybe. Bathtub.
2 swimming pools.
2 swimming pools.
You were on the right track with
I
swimming
was.
pools.
And then I second guessed myself. Never should have done it.
Oh, goodness. What a good episode. Hopefully, you guys took some good takeaways in terms of how to move forward make peace with where you're at. And, maybe this is what you needed to hear to just have that like nice, solid, honest conversation with yourself about where you're at and what you need to do in order to move forward.
Yeah. Hopefully we just gave you a little nuggets, things that you could think about as we age, and maybe put at the top of your list is finding a way into your routine. So thank you for listening.
Talk to you guys next week.